All right, good afternoon. It seems that we're here not that long ago. Roll call, Councillor Tonio won't be here today. I don't know if he's gonna come on. No, okay. And so we'll carry on and start with land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water originally inhabited by Indigenous people who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum treaties and the agreements between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, Lenni, Lenape, and the allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples and Colwell First Nation. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history, culture, while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit and Métis. To the members, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you today? Hearing none, thank you. Well, let's say delegations. I think we got lots of them today. And no communications to deal with. So we're going to get right into reports. First one up is our fire chief, Wade Bondi, and it's the, oh, am I correct? No, yes. Ooh, community safety, 2023-01 fire equipment 5-year capital works plan for the years 2023-27. And I'll turn the floor over to you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor McNamara, and through you to the members of council. The report you have before you, as the mayor just mentioned, is requesting our 2023 capital purchases, as well as forecast years for 24 up to 27. In the 23 purchases recommended are some gear replacements, helmets, boots, and bunker gear. This is replacing expired gear or purchasing new gear for newer recruits. More significant purchases included in 2023 are replacement of 50% of our SCBA cylinder stock. As council may recall, we replaced SCBA packs themselves in 2020. However, the cylinders still had some remaining life in them. They're actually viable up until the end of next year. Although we'd rather purchase them, half of them now and half of them next year at the end of their life, so that we can stagger the purchase for one thing and stagger the testing that's required every 5 years as well. The other significant item for 2023 is the radio system replacement. The capital dollars that you see there that's being requested represents a sole purchase by the town. That's kind of the worst case scenario. The intent is to do some sort of cooperative purchase with the other 3 municipalities that are involved in the system, and hopefully bring prices down, which I think is a reasonable estimate. The current radio system has ended its useful life beyond 2023. It will no longer be supported by the manufacturer of the parts, making any repairs or upgrades to the system very costly and not quickly done. And the other 3 municipalities that I've mentioned are in line with this, upgrading the system this year and moving forward with the purchases as well, subject to their budget approval, of course. A future report, hopefully in quarter number 2 of this year, will be brought forward to recommend the not only the radio system provider, but also the purchase of the equipment itself for council's consideration. That is a summary of the report. I guess if there are any questions. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I should mention, there is a one-time purchase or a one-time transfer recommended of $500,000 from the infrastructure reserves to the fire equipment reserve. That's to help offset the costs of the radio system purchasing for this year.
Chief, on the radio system and that, is there the ability to communicate with non-traditional fire? What I'm saying, if we get into an emergency situation, public works, water division, EMS.
Yep. Thank you for your question, Mr. Mayor. EMS and OPP are currently switching to a P25 system, which is the same design system that we are likely moving towards. So we would have the ability to communicate with them. I believe Coast Guard already uses the system, and after the 4 municipalities, us included, switches to a P25 system, that would be countywide. So
It makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Thank you. Thank your worship to the fire chief. The only question I was going to ask, but you provided me the information before I asked it, is just regarding the radio system and, can we collaborate with any of our neighboring municipalities? So I am happy to hear that that is what we're doing, and, hopefully we're able to reduce that somewhat if the 4 municipalities get together and bulk purchase these. So I think that was my question.
thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, Chief, in terms of, it's not on here, the high water rescue truck we talked about. We have this asset now, and we talked about bulk purchasing and whatnot. Is there any value looking at having a county buy this truck and then the county? Or is it still value for us to keep it? Because again, I know why it was purchased. It served its purpose, but are we using it? Or would other municipalities may need it? I don't know where that sits in your long-term plan, because it's just, it's great to be in the parades, but is it really serving its purpose?
Yep. Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor, and through the mayor back to Deputy. Since the purchase, we have outfitted the high water rescue vehicle with this tank and small pump. We do use it for field fires. We have used it on a number of occasions, including a couple of mutual aid calls. So the truck is getting used. It was purchased primarily for high water rescue, but it is being used for other uses in our department. So,
well, that's good to know. Thank you.
thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Higginson.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a little bit further to Councillor Houston's question, and so of that purchase cost of the radio system, should we get those costs down, will any of the costs go back into reserves, since we're taking 500,000 from reserves? Will any of those, if we're able to get into a cost sharing and bring that cost down, will those funds go back into reserves, or will they come off the kind of top of it? And will we keep everything from reserves?
I may have to defer to Tom on this question, but I believe if we are able to save sufficient money, that the $500,000 transfer would be adjusted to the purchase. Okay, that's correct. Thanks.
All right. Further questions or comments? Recommendation then, members of council, is that the 2023 fire equipment purchases as summarized in attachment 1 to report number community safety 2023-01 fire equipment 5-year capital works plan for the years 2023-2027 be approved. And that the equipment purchases outlined in report community services 2023-01 be funded through the life cycle fire equipment reserve. And further, that a one-time transfer in 2023 of 500,000 from the infrastructure reserve to the life cycle fire equipment reserve to fund the radio system replacement be approved. On the motion, moved by Councillor Higginson, supported by Councillor Jobin. No further questions and comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, Chief. All right, item 2, members of council, Public Works, Environmental Services 2023-01, and that also for the years 2023, 2027, Public Works Engineering Services, a 5-year capital works plan. Mr. Bartnick, floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. It's a pleasure to be here to present this report to you today. Before I start summarizing the report, I did want to give a big thank you to our departmental managers as well as our staff and everyone who worked on this report. A lot of time and effort goes into these reports, and just wanted to pass along my big thanks for that. So in summary, so there are the total number of 2023 projects for public works and engineering services is 24. This represents approximately 38.6 million in budget allocation. 21.3 million previously allocated and 17.3 million requested allocation for 2023. Most of these projects are ongoing with approximately 7 projects that are new. These new projects generally relate to water, road, sanitary and bridge repair improvements required to maintain existing infrastructure, projects to support proposed growth-related developments, and or satisfy grant funding requirements. Some of the notable projects for 2023 consist of the following: detailed design of the Tecumseh secondary plan area northwest water and wastewater infrastructure, finalization of various studies such as the shoreline management plan, the stormwater rate study, the sanitary sewer model update, continuation of detailed design and construction for the Scully St. Mark's pumping station, as well as the PJ Cecile storm pumping stations, for which we were able to get grant funding under the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund program. Construction of the L'Esperance Road via rail crossing improvement project, and construction of water main and sanitary sewer infrastructure related to the County of Essex County Road 42 improvement project. Approval of 2023 capital works projects and the full 2023 to 2027 capital works plan is sought to maintain a consistently high level of service and to strive to improve the town's infrastructure components in a timely manner. This capital works plan is the first to specifically tie in the capital priorities related to council's growth related direction. So as council may recall, council received presentations on the capital priorities 2023 to 2031 at the March 29th, as well as the May 5th, 2022 special council meetings. At the May 5th meeting, administration was directed to incorporate the recommended hybrid scenario within the 2022 as well as the 2023 to 2027 capital works plans. This hybrid scenario is to address the strategic priorities of growth and economic development, as well as council approved mandates. This hybrid scenario was structured for proposed capital expenditures at 156% of the town's past 10-year average. It was also highlighted the need for extraordinary resources in terms of staffing, consulting, as well as financial, above and beyond what was the annual public works program. The 5-year capital works plan in front of you today includes those projects as identified in the May 5th, 2022 presentation to council, with the addition of 4 larger projects. And I just wanted to highlight those for you today. The first being the L'Esperance Road Trail from Riverside Drive to First Street. That was at a cost of 4.7 million. We thought it would be beneficial to include that as part of our 5-year report. As council is aware, we are waiting on confirmation of our grant application. The second is the Del Duca sanitary sewer extension. The design has been completed for that project, and we are just awaiting to move forward with construction. That project was estimated at about 5.4 million. It was accelerated from year 7 in the 10-year plan to year 2, based on some needs and pressures of the industrial area within that area for having wastewater services brought to them. The third one is the Manning Road water mains, and this was estimated about 3.25 million. And this is to coordinate with the County of Essex continued phases of Manning Road. As council may be aware, I think the county is looking at tendering out later this year. The first phase, or what they refer to as the south leg of County Road 22 and Manning. And then in the subsequent years, they are planning to continue south on Manning Road with additional phases, eventually ending up at Highway 3. So we wanted to ensure that our 5-year capital plans lined up with their phasing. And lastly, the fourth project was phases 3 and 4 for the County Road 42 and 43 project at a cost of about 0.9 million. And again, that was just to coordinate with the county's 5-year capital works plan. Attached to the report, so attachment 1 is a summary of the requested 2023 budget allocations. This is identified per project as well as per reserve fund. Attachment 2 is the 2023 to 2027 PWES 5-year capital works plan, essentially a list of the projects. And attachment 3 are the location maps for all of the 2023 projects that will be undertaken. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Questions? I have one. I think with all the tendering that we've gone through in the last 18 months, we haven't even hit a target. I think we might have had one, but it's obviously the inflation component, the supply chain issues going on and on. In these estimates that are here, are they realistically close to what we anticipate moving forward?
Thank you, Your Worship. Very good question. So we did go back and reevaluate the budgetary estimates for all of these projects within the 5-year plan. They have increased from what was previously identified. And basically on average, I think there was about an increase of about 15% across the board. Some projects a little bit more than others, but on average, it went up about 15%, just to try to take into account some of the higher tenders that we've seen and some of the market pressures.
Okay, and then on County Road 42, 43, the different phases, and then 2024, is the anticipation in your estimation that will be finished by the time the North Star EV plant opens?
Another good question. It's my understanding phase 1, which is the underground work on County Road 42, will be completed by the end of 2023. The second phase is the underground and surface work on County Road 43 itself, from CP Rail to just south of County Road 42. And that is to take place in 2024. My understanding with the last meeting with the city is that the Next Star battery plant is trying to aim for Q1 of 2025 to be open and operating at that time. So it'll be close.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor Houston.
I'm really happy to see the trails, the really big ticket items. If you look at the amount of money in it, this doesn't even include the Riverside Trail, which was what, over close to 1.5 million or.
I believe it was just over 3 million, I believe.
So
yes.
We're looking at $10 million of trails, which is, you know, for a municipality like that to do within a short time is really going to have an impact in terms of, you know, the residents and the pedestrians using those trails. My question, in terms of L'Esperance Road, and that it says requested for 2023, are those projects contemplated being constructed in 23 and 24, or because they both show up here under requested?
Yep. Through you, Your Worship, to the Deputy Mayor. So the first L'Esperance Road Trail project is from County Road 22 to 42. Design is currently underway, and we hope to have the design finalized this year. We are requesting the total funds for construction as we anticipate to tender that project out in October and November, hopefully to get a good competitive price with construction starting in 2024. The second trail on Les Bronx Road from Riverside Drive to First Street. We are requesting full funding, but it is contingent on our grant application being approved. And that I believe it's written in the report that if successful with the grant, we would return back to council with a separate report and then seeking final approval for that project.
Okay, very good.
Oh, and sorry, and just to add with that, so if we were successful to move forward, the timelines for that project would be design and approvals in 2023 and construction in 2025.
Very good. You become an expert on these trails now. So my follow-up to those two questions, having those trails, I know Councillor Houston, even a few years ago in Ward 4, there is a sidewalk and then there's an allotment here for a repair program. I'm not sure if it's for new sidewalks, but there's a sidewalk that goes to nowhere on Mason going east towards Les Bronx. So there's 2 blocks. And if possible, we did mention it in the past and administration said they're going to look at it, refer to budget. But if we can connect that piece, it allows those residences in those homes to have that east-west corridor connection to the eventual Les Bronx Trail so that they have a safe way to go there. So it's I think it's about 2.5 blocks. So I'm not sure if that's included there, Phil, under sidewalk repair program or not, but that's something that would be nice to be able to connect that link there.
Through you, your worship, I don't believe that was included in the sidewalk repairs, but it's definitely something we can look into and cost out and if need be, return back to council with a subsequent report for project approval and funding.
And that's my point. We have the trail there, but we got to get people to get to that. I know we have one on intersection, so that helps there. And then, if you do one to Mason of, then eventually, as the roads, the arterial roads move along that hamlet development, there'll be more opportunities to do that. But right now there isn't any for that area.
Well, thank you, worship, through you to Mr. Bartnick. I was going to ask a similar question to what the deputy did, but you were able to answer it. But the one question I do have, we did receive funding for the Les Bronx Trail, and I believe we've put in, and we've received grant funding for that trail. We've put in for the Les Bronx Trail up here. And I know we've kind of gone back on numerous grants to ask for any top-ups because of the escalation in construction pricing. So aside from the Les Bronx Trail, which we've received grant funding now for, are there any other projects included here that we've received grants on that there'd be an opportunity for us to go back and ask for top-ups? Have we done that, or is that something we plan on doing? And is it something which is feasible?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Houston, very good question. We do have a number of projects that are related to grants. Some federal, some provincial and federal. I believe there's roughly about 5 or 6 of them that we currently have. We have asked and inquired, and to date, only one grant, and that would be related to the Les Bronx Road via rail improvement project, which was the rail safety and improvement program, strictly a federal program. So they indicated that, we could ask, it was easy for them to approve a 20% increase. If we wanted more, we would have to kind of go through a review process. Very interesting how some federal grant programs recognize and are able to increase the grant, and how some are pretty much strictly capped out. And I think a lot of it has to do with some of these grant programs being oversubscribed and some of these programs not having any leftover money, let's say. So we are trying, and we are asking, and we're asking very early, even in the early stages, just identifying, some of these inflationary costs and market pressures that we've been seeing. So.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Phil, we've had discussions about County Road 34 pathway extension. easterly and westerly. I don't see that in the 5-year projection again. I know there's just some conversations taking place with the county, but even now that we are looking at the Maidstone Rec Center to even continue the sidewalk a little like westerly to connect that. We've always talked about easterly past the cemetery for those residents. I was hoping to see that in here.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to Councillor Jobin. That's one of the projects that's definitely on our radar. And I think when we went through the exercise earlier in 2022, with trying to prioritize some of the projects and really focusing on council's initiative of tying these projects to development and growth and economic growth. Some of the projects had to be pushed off, and some of the notable ones, that come to mind, Manning Road Phase 3, which was kind of slated for the next couple of years. But I think, trying to jockey the position of the timing of that project. So one, it's affordable, as well as two, we're able to manage these projects in-house. And so I think when it came down to that pathway, I didn't make it into the 5-year capital works plan. We are trying to manage, and I think one of the blessings, I guess, we have is that we have been very successful in the grant program as of late. With the Riverside Drive Trail or the L'Esperance Rail improvement project, as well as DMAF. And so a lot of times we're getting tied up with some of those grant programs, and they're jumping over or leapfrogging some of these other projects that are equally as important. But we definitely want to take advantage of some of those grant programs when they are available.
Further questions? And that, just one more for me on the DMAP, and this is a project that we got a grant. It's almost 2 years now. I think about 2 years to 10.6, obviously. There's no doubt. I think we need to push, because I think I don't know what the new estimates are for the 3 pumping station now, but it used to be about 26.2 million. But I would surmise it's probably pushing more into the 30+ million now, in that regard. I think we need to have the conversation. I kind of had a brief one with Eric on certainly on that, and I think there's an understanding on their part that it's not 40% anymore, and that cost and so forth. And to your earlier point, Councillor Houston, as well, is that we had the opportunity at Rumwood to speak with the PA for infrastructure, and indicated that the inflationary costs, and now it's not like a year to year anymore. It's almost like a week to week, and they should be looking at managing the top up so that the current percentage is maintained. But I think we need to have that conversation, because that project in particular has to be completed, I believe, by 2027.
2027 construction season, they give us till March 2028, but pretty much at the end of 2027.
So just on normal CPI, especially on construction, that 7, 8, 9, 10% per year. When you're talking $26 million project, it doesn't take long to start cutting into what our portion is going to be, certainly on that. And the other question as well is on DMAP itself. We know there's another uptake, and I know, looking at some of the projects that you've indicated, especially on the sewage and stormwater projects, but maybe there's some opportunities to bundle that or to try to get that initiated. And are we still looking at the project on the Green Valley project, the diversion on Storm going into the new channel? And I remember that was part of, I believe, the last intake of that we made that application, and that is that the scary part is when you reapply, you might be lucky, but others is to find out why we were not turned down. And hopefully we're turned down because we had one, the previous one. And because that is a significant one as well for flooding issues, especially on the L'Esperance and the Bride area, Little River. And we've identified that, I think, in the storm master plan.
If I may, thank you, your worship. Just going back to, I believe the first comment for DMAF. So we have had some initial conversations with the DMAF staff that we're working with on inflation and market pressures. They haven't said no outright, which is a good sign, but they have said let's wait and see how the first tender comes out. So we're hoping to tender phase one within the next week or so. And so we should have a better idea of where we are with costs and the budget within the next month. With respect to the new intake of DMAF, we are aware that the program has opened up. I believe we have until July to make an application. We have scheduled a meeting with DMAF to review our I guess the fourth intake submission that was mainly trunk sanitary sewers, as well as some stormwater projects that were out of the master plan. And hopefully it's a debrief to see where we can bolster our application should we want to proceed with either that project again or if we wanted to switch gears. I think one of the challenges with the previous application, I think it was slated at about 28 or 29 million in projects. And so I think we'll have to be very strategic in our next project that we put forward. DMF does have two streams now. They have the standard stream where they had bundled projects exceeding 20 million. But they also have a lower stream now, essentially 1 million to 20 million. And so I guess one, will review our previous application. Two, will review the projects within our 5-year capital works plan or 10-year capital works plan to see if we can kind of coincide and merge those two. And that way we're not adding additional work to the work plan and we don't have to kind of reshuffle the projects. But we hope to bring forward a report to council within the next month or so with a proposed or recommended project for that application fund.
Thank you, Your Worship. This question just popped in my mind right now. And I apologize if I didn't ask it earlier, but with regards to the hamlet and the hamlet development, because you mentioned, the North Star battery plant and us preparing. I do see the hamlet, SPAEA. What is required for us to, further develop in that area residentially? Because as I understand, there is a wastewater trunk or a sanitary trunk that needs to be extended, but I'm not seeing it in here at all. Am I missing it, or is that something which down the road potentially could be pulled in should development really accelerate if we have developers coming to the table saying, hey, when can we go?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Houston, very good question. So there are two kind of projects in the Tecumseh Hamlet. One, so currently right now, the engineering department as well as the planning department is working on the Tecumseh Hamlet secondary plan area. So it kind of navigates through the planning processes. And as part of that, there are functional servicing studies, as well as environmental assessments that are being completed. And we hope to bring that forward, I think in Q1 or Q2 of 2023. There is a separate project. I think I've narrowed down the acronym because I couldn't fit it in, but if you're looking at attachment 1, it's referred to as a TSPA. So Tecumseh Secondary Plan Area, Northwest Water and Wastewater Infrastructure. So we are moving forward with the detailed design of the trunk sanitary, of the trunk water from 22 to just past CP rail this year. And we're going to look at it strategically to see if we can break that into two separate phases. The first phase, I think, to Intersection Road, and then the second phase under the CP Rail. And I think the reason for that is sometimes it's a little lengthy to get approvals from the railroad companies. And so if we could get a jump start in the winter of next year on some of those trunks through the farm field, while we are still working on getting those approvals, I think it's a good way to try to accelerate that infrastructure.
Just to help you out there, Councillor Houston, through the mayor, that is project in the report B14, page 32 of 40.
Thank you. I do see it on the attachment that Phil has said, but I'll just circle back on that specific note that you've mentioned. Thank you.
All right, any further question, comments? Then looking for a recommendation here that the Public Works and Engineering Services PWES capital projects for 2023 as summarized in attachment 1 to report Public Works Environmental Services 2023-01 and for the years 2023-2027 Public Works and Engineering Services, that's our 5-year capital works plan, be approved, and that the 2023 Public Works Environmental Services capital projects be funded through the following reserves and reserve funds as set out in report PWES 2023-01, Road Lifecycle Reserve, Sidewalk Lifecycle Reserve, Bridges Lifecycle Reserve, Water Main Reserve Fund, Wastewater Sewers Reserve Fund, Wastewater Facilities Reserve Fund, Stormwater Lifecycle Reserve, Infrastructure Reserve, and that the Public Works and Engineering Services Capital Works Plan for 2023-2027 as outlined in attachment number 2 to report PWES 2023-01 be approved. Moved by Councillor Houston and supporting Councillor Darner. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, move on. Number 3, Mr. Firth, our Technology and Client Services Capital Works Plan.
Not the dollars of the previous 2 reports, but important nonetheless to the organization. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. Before you, we have report number 2023-01 from Technology and Client Services. So pursuant to the adoption of our budget last week, we now look at the 2023 plan for Technology and Client Services in addition to the 5-year plan. So this year we're asking for an approval of $152,000. Our annual allocation for this life cycle bucket is $173,000. If you look back over the years, when we started the life cycle program, this allocation hasn't increased substantially for a couple of reasons. Number one, even though our asset base and our technology usage in the organization has grown over the years, the dollars to procure various assets such as computers, et cetera, has not increased. What you'd buy a laptop for example, 15 years ago, isn't the same cost today. It's much lower. So we've been able to hold steady the allocation every year, and you'll see in the attachment we do have a healthy reserve buffer for this program. So we'll be looking for $152,000 this year for the projects, and I'll list a few here. The annual allocations for PC replacements, et cetera, network upgrades. We do have quite a large private network that we maintain across the town with over 30 sites that are connected, the town hall being the hub, but from all 5 wards, you'll see connectivity between sites. That takes a bit to maintain. So there is an annual allocation for that. Video surveillance has come before council in previous meetings, and that's something we upgrade usually 1 or 2 sites a year. Most recently is Station 1 that hadn't been done in a number of years. So that was retrofitted with all brand new equipment this past month. AV systems, that's in all of our meeting rooms, obviously council chambers being the biggest user of audiovisual equipment. Street photography, we do hire a company to go out biennially and photograph all of our streets and our assets along the streets, et cetera. One of the big ticket items this year is the virtual server upgrade. So that's all of our servers here located on premises at Town Hall are due for replacement. Financial software, it's something we're looking at next year. And time and attendance software was one of the outcomes of the payroll review and the HR review in the last year or so. So with, yeah, just a little sidebar on the life cycle program. We've been fortunate to have this since we adopted it in 2005. If nothing else, it assists this group, not only technology and client services, but all the departments in maintaining current infrastructure and current assets, because especially in the IT world, as things get outdated or obsolete, you can run into problems. And that's where in the last few months, I've been before council preaching about cybersecurity. And if we don't keep our assets updated and secure, we couldn't have accomplished this without the lifecycle program. And you look around at some of my colleagues in the area or in the province, they struggle with that and obtaining the dollars from their councils to stay current. So we appreciate council's commitment to this program. It makes our life a lot easier. With that, your worship, if there's any questions, I can address them now.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Firth. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, in the past, the town provided some in-kind support to the BIA office. Is there any of that in the MOU? I know there was recently signed agreement in terms of their photocopier, their computer, their software. Is there any sharing of that, or, you know, if something's outdated, it goes to them? I'm just asking, you know, in terms of what relationship there is now moving forward with the BIA.
Sure, through you, your worship, to the deputy mayor. The simple answer is probably not to the extent it used to be, for a couple of reasons, and we've alluded to some of that in this report. But as more and more applications migrate to the cloud, there's less hands-on needed for us internally. Where we can help, we do. If they call, we pick up the phone as needed. But I think it's detailed quite a bit in the report that council approved last night. Other areas, you know, cell phones, and if there's purchasing opportunities through bulk buying and pricing that the town has available to us through the smart community, those are areas that we'll share and extend to the BIA. But again, the day-to-day, I would argue, is not as critical or as called upon as it once was.
Yeah, any further questions or comments? Just more of a comment, Mr. Firth. I know we were at Roma, and to your point, talking about cybersecurity, and the question was around the insuring our municipalities and so forth, and getting insurance for cyber. And many of the communities can't get insurance, so it's very, very important for us to maintain a high level of security for our system. We've seen, you know, and it close to home, how easy it is. And just recently, I was kind of a subject of phishing. I know that the deputy mayor was looking for some, and Zora got a request that I had changed my banking arrangements and then to call in and so forth. So the training that our folks are getting, it clued in right away on her. Why would he send an email and so forth? So she was able to track it and so forth. So I think the cost of providing the level of technology, you know, it's not 100% in terms of, but it gets us as close as we can to protect the integrity of the corporation in that. So thank you to yourself, your leadership on that, plus your department. I think it's critical. We manage a lot of files and a lot of inquiries and with the amount of equipment that's out there and to manage that. So when I look at your budget and the upgrades to equipment and that's required, I think it's an investment in protecting the integrity, but also keeping us at the forefront. In particular now with the advancement of autonomous vehicles that are coming and so forth, and for the community, I think we need to continue to be at the forefront and not be trying to catch up. So I certainly want to commend yourself and your leadership on that. So if there's no further questions, the recommendation is that the 2023 technology and client services capital projects summarized in attachment 1 to report number TCS 2023-01 for the years 2023, 2027 TCS capital works plan be approved. And that the 2023 TCS capital projects of 152,000 be funded through the technology and client services lifecycle reserve. Moved by Councillor Higginson, supported Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And that concludes the proceedings this afternoon. I don't know if there's anything else that anybody want to bring forward at this stage or administration. We're all good? A-okay. Okay, then adjournment is in order. Deputy Mayor Becchetti and Councillor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am.
Still recording.
It's okay.